All right, it is Thursday. I am here with Cha-Cha and Anna. Hello there.
Hello. Cha-Cha, you want to say hello?
If Cha-Cha starts talking and I put her at the table, ratings gold. I'm very excited about this. All right, let's get right into it because that's what people want when we sit and talk together. The major news networks, including ABC News, CBS News, CNN, Fox News Media, and NBC News, issued a statement this week saying they would not be signing the Pentagon's new press policy, declaring it is without precedent and threatens core journalistic principles and protections. What did you make of it?
I was really happy to see the press outlets band together, express solidarity, stick together, and fight back together. I think we have been sadly missing that from press platforms and outlets. Listen, remember that one of the first things the Trump administration, or misadministration as I call it, did was ban the AP from the Oval Office because they refused to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America.
That's right.
Right? They continue to call it the Gulf of Mexico. And the AP got banned, and at that moment, I thought everybody else should have walked out with the AP and said, if you are censoring the AP, if you are bullying the AP this way, we are all walking out. You go ahead and have your press conferences with nobody but OAN. Let's see how that feels. Listen, Donald Trump loves the spotlight, loves the coverage, loves the back and forth with the press. Believe me, if he all of a sudden found himself in an empty Oval Office just talking to himself, I think he might rethink things. But press outlets missed the opportunity in the beginning to band together and fight back together. And I think it's an example, not just for corporations, not just for press outlets, but for all of us. It's hard to be the one lone voice, the one person standing up. It's a lot easier when we do it as part of a community, when we do it as part of a group. And media outlets, corporations, people, business titans, if they haven't learned the lesson in the last 9 months that when you give in to a bully, the bully comes back and beats you up harder, then I don't know what they have been doing. So it's time for all of us collectively to fight back against the bully. I am thrilled to see the media banding together.
There's really striking footage of all the journalists walking out of the Pentagon together. And to your point, right now, I think it's just One American News that signed. And it made me laugh. The Daily Show with Jon Stewart said they signed because they wanted to give Pete Hegseth a win. They felt bad for him. So they're also going to sign it, I think.
Yeah. And that's, that we've seen solidarity from the comedians.
Yes.
You bring up
absolutely true.
Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
When Colbert got canceled, when Jimmy Kimmel got pulled off, you saw comedian after comedian banding together. And it is important.
Absolutely. The president also confirmed this week that he had authorized CIA action in Venezuela and indicated his administration is exploring land strikes in Venezuela. Do you think people understand what's going on here? I feel like, honestly, I didn't really understand it until I read something that you wrote.
Well, okay, let's just think about this for a minute, okay? First of all, I'm not a CIA agent.
That would explain a lot.
I probably slept with a couple because in Miami, I feel like there's a bunch running around. But it's a little strange to me that if you are planning covert CIA operations in a foreign country to do regime change, you would be announcing it.
True.
And leaking it and then confirming it. That to me is a little strange, and that's why I always wonder how much of this is smoke and mirrors and just a show and performance for the Cuban Americans, the Venezuelan Americans in South Florida, and those Congress people who are under a lot of pressure because Venezuelans are getting removed from this country. Their TPS, their temporary protective status, is being taken away. It makes no sense to me how on the one hand, Donald Trump is saying that the Maduro regime is so bad, and it is. I absolutely believe Nicolas Maduro is an evil dictator who kills, jails, oppresses his people. But how can you, on the one hand, say that Venezuela is so bad and Maduro is so bad that you are planning CIA covert operations to do regime change, and on the other hand, You are taking away temporary protective status from hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans who have been living here for years, working hard and being part of our community, and sending them back to what you are saying is a cruel dictatorship that must be removed. So, I'm kind of torn about this. I hate Maduro. They have done incredible harm. Ortega, Castro, Maduro in Latin America, in their own countries. They've caused mass migration and exile out of those countries. They've caused family separation, so much suffering, I can't begin to tell you. I have so many friends whose lives have been broken apart because of the dictators in Latin America, including Maduro. I've lived through regime change. Carter did regime change in Nicaragua, was, contributed to regime change in Nicaragua, taking Somoza out and putting the Sandinistas in. That didn't work that well.
No.
We've seen it happen in place again where it doesn't work well. Now, I also think there's a constitutional aspect to this. Regime change is something that the U.S. used to do back in the 60s. Back in the 70s, back in the 80s, we've kind of not been doing it as much now because
it doesn't seem to end up too well.
Diplomacy, is the preferred way. Bottom line is, though, there were elections in Venezuela last year. Maduro lost and stayed in power by force, by repression. Refused to leave. And so to me, he is an illegitimate leader of Venezuela.
So you really are torn on this. Because,
I am torn on this because I'm torn on whether it's performance or whether it's real. Mm-hmm. I'm torn on whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm torn at when, that I see Donald Trump, attacking Maduro, but I also see him attacking Venezuelan Americans in the United States. So I don't get it. To me, the whole thing is a conundrum and confusing. I will tell you the thing I'm not torn on is that I hope I get to see very soon Venezuelans living in freedom and justice and democracy.
Well, speaking of which, I saw you applauded the Nobel Peace Prize being awarded last week to the Venezuelan opposition leader,
whose name you couldn't pronounce.
Not for all the money in my pockets, no. But
Maria Corina Machado.
Thank you for doing it. What did you?
You wanna now try the congresswoman from Arizona who hasn't been sworn in? Her name?
I do not know.
Adelita Grijalba. I'm telling you, you are going to have trouble with Bad Bunny if we don't start working on this. You got 4 months.
I got 4 months to be able to pronounce the name.
Maria Corina Machado. Maria Corina Machado is such a courageous woman. She is in Venezuela. A lot of people have fled into exile. She is in hiding in Venezuela because that regime, if it finds her, will probably jail her, maybe worse. She has stayed there. She is, for me, a singular symbol of resistance and opposition and courage. I thought she deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. Because actually she couldn't run for president in Venezuela because they banned her. The Maduro regime banned her as from running. Mm-hmm. So basically there was a stand-in for her running, a man who is now in exile in Spain, while she stayed in Venezuela facing the risk and danger because she understands what it means to those struggling for freedom in Venezuela for her to stay and fight alongside of them. So I'm thrilled that she got that award.
That's great. President Trump raised some red flags when the U.S. finalized a $20 billion bailout of the Argentinian economy. Many American farmers have been hit hard by his trade war with China. Doesn't really feel like America first that was promised in this moment right now. What's your take on this? Is this going to be impactful to support for him? Do you think...
Yeah, who knew that MAGA stood for Make Argentina Great Again?
Yeah, it's
so
really...
Let me unpack this, though. Okay. So Javier Milei, the president of Argentina, has fashioned himself as a Latin American Trump. He has been an economic disaster in Argentina. Argentina is in financial downfall and crisis. His party lost the provincial elections in Buenos Aires, the capital city, last month. In about 10 days, there are midterm congressional elections in Argentina, and his party is behind. So this is a last-ditch effort by Donald Trump to tip the electoral scales on behalf of his buddy, Javier Milei, in Argentina. So he is bailing them out, Donald Trump, to the tune of $20 billion. That comes at the same time as the government is shut down.
Right.
And thousands of federal workers don't know how they're going to pay their rent, or how they're going to pay their groceries, or how they're going to feed their families. That comes at the same time that the government is shut down because Republicans refuse to accept subsidies, to renew subsidies, healthcare subsidies for U.S. citizens. That comes at the same time when SNAP benefits have been cut from American citizens, when our neediest are being told that there are no safety nets for them, when soybean farmers in America are going bankrupt. Because at the same time that Donald Trump is bailing out Argentina with $20 billion, Argentina, who is the number one competitor to the United States on the soybean sale to China is the biggest buyer of soybeans. Argentina lowered their tariffs on soybeans vis-a-vis selling to China. So they made it easier for China to buy from them. This year, China, which is usually the number one buyer of U.S. soybeans, has bought zero, nada bushels of soybeans from the United States. So our farmers are desperate.
They're very hurt.
Filing for bankruptcy. They don't want to be bailed out. They want to be able to compete in the world market. And so at the same time that he is bailing out his friend because he wants his friend to win the elections, the same way that he slapped tariffs on Brazil because he wanted that corrupt friend of his there, Bolsonaro, to be taken out of jail and pardoned. The same way that he told Israel this year, at the Knesset when Trump was making his speech at the Knesset earlier this week, that they should pardon Netanyahu, who was also under indictment and a legal process over there because of corruption. So basically, if you're his friend, he bails you out. He wants to help you. He wants to do everything to make sure that you're not held accountable for any malfeasance you may have done. If you are his enemy, he weaponizes U.S. institutions and the U.S. government against you, whether it's the FCC or the DOJ, you name it.
Well, you referenced Israel, and all week long we've been talking about the first phase of this U.S. brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. We were all applauding it on Monday because it's a historic achievement if it holds. How's it been playing out in your view? There seems like there are some tensions now.
Well, I've always said that I'm cautiously optimistic because I'm both elated at the hostages being released and brought back to Israel. I am saddened by all the families who are waiting for their dead relatives, if they're found. I am saddened by the innocent Palestinians returning to a Gaza that is nothing but dust and rubble, and really the idea of what it's going to take to rebuild that burgeoning city is simply, to me, overwhelming. I guess it can be done. It was done after World War I, World War II. So I guess those things can be done. But it is, the footage that is coming out of Gaza is simply...
It's horrific.
Horrific and heartbreaking. But, and I look at Trump. In Spanish, we have a saying, candil de la calle, oscuridad de la casa. A bright light in the street, but when he comes home, it's darkness. And that very much to me right now applies to Trump. So he went over there and he had, he was able to wrangle Hamas and Israel to sign a peace treaty, to sign a ceasefire, a compromise, using all sorts of diplomacy. And yet here in the United States, he is at war with his own citizens. he is sending the U.S. military to cities that are governed by Democrats. Again, weaponizing the government against people he perceives as his opponents. Why can't he says, he likes to call himself the deal maker in chief. Say that that's the biggest talent he brings. Now you tell me, if this guy was capable of bringing Hamas and Israel to the table, why in the hell can't he use that same deal-making prowess to bring Republicans and Democrats to the table so that they can pass immigration reform and we don't have to continue seeing the horrors that we are seeing play out in the streets of America with U.S. citizens scooped up and children zip-tied and people dragged through the streets? Why in the hell can't he bring Republicans and Democrats together to compromise and craft a deal on health care so we can reopen the government and thousands of federal workers can go back to work and not have the financial insecurity that they are having right now? Federal workers are having to go get food at Jose Andres' restaurants in Washington, D.C. Jose Andres is basically running soup kitchens out of his restaurants in Washington, D.C. How can we call ourselves the greatest country in the world when our federal workers are having to go get free food because they can't pay their groceries because the Republicans and Democrats can't get together and craft a deal? What kind of stupidity and childish behavior is that? So my question to Trump is, if you can be this big deal maker in the Middle East, why can't you do the same thing? I don't know a president who's had as much power and sway with his own party than Donald Trump has.
I don't think in my lifetime.
But instead of trying to craft a compromise, he is putting out stupid memes against Schumer and Jeffries. He behaves he goes over to the Middle East and he behaves like a statesman. He comes here and he behaves like a 4-year-old toddler having a tantrum. It's shameful and unacceptable. And Americans should be asking themselves why.
All right. At this point in the podcast, when you get to that red line, I need to change gears and do something that makes you happy. And here we're going to do it. You presented at the Hispanic Organization of Latin Artists this week. Tell me about that.
Oh, it was the most wonderful thing. So, it's the Hola Awards. And
that means hello.
Oh, look at
that. See?
Okay, let's work on this.
Don't.
Titi me preguntó.
No,
Titi means aunt.
Yes.
In Spanish.
Yes. By the way, I took college level Spanish and cannot
How did you do?
in any way.
Did you fail?
I guess not, because I got out of college. I don't know.
I don't know. You must have been graded
rough.
on a curve.
Yeah.
But anyways, the Hola Awards, they were absolutely wonderful. I was, they were. It's an organization that gives awards and that does scholarships and does all sorts of programs for emerging artists, children. Mm-hmm. And I was there at a table with what I consider some of the luminaries of artistry in the United States and especially Latin artists. So a guy named Ruben Blades, he's a Panamanian who's just spectacular. He's kind of like the Latin American Bob Dylan. I mean, he's just, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who was getting an award, asked Ruben to present his award. And Ariana DeBose, the Oscar-winning actress, asked me to present her award. At one point, we were all in the elevator together, Lin-Manuel, Ariana DeBose, Ruben Blades. I wanted one of them to get off because I said, if something happens with this elevator, we've literally lost Latin American, Latino artistry in this country. Somebody needs to get off. I'm getting very, very worried.
You needed a designated survivor, yeah.
But I talk about this all the time. The need to find balance and the need to find joy and the need to find community. And so for me at these times, which are particularly hard for the Latino community, at a time when people want to silence us, I want us to be louder. At a time when there are people in this government who want to shame us and humiliate us and vilify us, I want us to be prouder. When they want to dim our joy and our light, we need to shine that much brighter. So it was a spectacular night celebrating Latino talent and excellence and the contributions to this country. But one of the things that really struck me, So, Lin-Manuel is sitting kind of like where you're sitting. We're at a table of 10, like you are in those events.
Yeah.
And these little kids, like there were 2 instances when 2 young boys, I don't know, maybe 8, 9 years old, come up to Lin-Manuel and they start talking to him like they've known him their entire life. And like one of them actually put his arm around his shoulders. And Lin-Manuel is having a conversation with these kids like if they're, I don't know, frat brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, Lin, what is that? I've never seen little kids approach an adult star like that and have that kind of familiarity and just comfort. And he said to me, I'm like the Pied Piper for this generation. If I play my flute, they will do anything because they grew up with Encanto and Moana.
Yep.
And so he says, so they feel like they know me. But these were little kids that I guess are part of the programs that Ola runs for Latino kids. They were coming to him asking Lin-Manuel Miranda for advice, like my niece might ask me. It was unbelievable.
That's very cool.
It was crazy nice. It made my heart sing.
Oh, that's great. All right, well, that's a good place to end.
No. We got to talk about the Burger Bash.
I was going to set you up. Don't worry. Thank you for joining me, Anna. I want to remind everyone that you're judging the Burger Bash tomorrow night.
And I have a question about this.
Okay.
Okay, so, no, but read your thing about where it is.
Yes, you're judging the Burger Bash tomorrow night at the New York City Wine and Food Festival.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes.
Because I've never judged a food competition like this before. So here's my question. Should I starve all day and go ravenously hungry? Or should I feed myself so that everything I put in my mouth doesn't immediately taste delicious?
I was going to say, if you starve yourself, the first thing you eat is going to be exactly, because you're going to want it so bad.
So what do you think?
I think somewhere in between is the honest answer. I know that's not a great answer, but I think you want to, have lunch, have a light lunch.
Could I die of a hamburger coma?
You might, yeah.
Can I tell you my Richard Gere story before we go?
Okay, so tomorrow on the show, Richard Gere is here. Icon, a pop culture icon,
Who I know, I love. I've had a crush on him my entire life. Okay. Officer and a Gentleman, I would die if that man carried me as an officer. Okay. 2004. He's a huge Dalai Lama follower and he's like a Dalai Lama groupie. He follows Dalai Lama like I follow Bad Bunny.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay. So 2004, the Dalai Lama is coming to Miami, to South Florida. My ex owns the Biltmore Hotel. And they had approached him about being the venue and hosting the Dalai Lama, having him at the hotel. And he got into a fight with the monks over the cost of food. The Dalai Lama and his people wanted the food comped. And Gene said, no way, they had to pay for food. That he'd comped the rooms, but they had to pay for food. And I was beyond myself. So then they end up going to another hotel where the hotel manager was actually a Buddhist. And then we actually hosted a lunch though for the Dalai Lama. And I'm looking, and the Dalai Lama eats broth and rice.
Right. You couldn't
so
account
literally,
for broth and rice?
Like the cost of Dalai Lama food is nothing. It's not like he's gorging on champagne and caviar.
Top shelf liquor. No,
broth and rice. And then because the Dalai Lama didn't come, there were busfuls of rich, Buddhist Dalai Lama groupie Californians and Americans that follow him everywhere he goes in the United States, including Richard Gere, who went to the other hotel. So I didn't speak to Gene for days because that would have been my chance to, run off with Richard Gere.
Well, tune in tomorrow, folks, because maybe tomorrow Anna Navarro will run off with Richard Gere. This is very exciting. All right, so
the Dalai Lama is one of the most spectacular human beings. The radiance of joy that emanates from him and
awesome.
Peace, just being near him is something.
That's incredible.
I stole a scarf
from the Dalai Lama?
Yeah.
You stole from the Dalai Lama?
Did I steal it or did I steal it from somebody else? I don't know, but there was a scarf that he had kind of touched. People were grabbing everything he had touched, the plates,
We've talked about you stealing from religious leaders. This is not a good thing.
Who else did I steal from?
Nobody. I'm just making that up. All right, that's it for Behind the Table this week, but we have an all-new view for you tomorrow with, as we mentioned, Richard Gere, Penn Badgley, and his co-host from the podcast, Pod Crush. That's going to be fun. And we'll see you tomorrow. Favorite Richard Gere movie is?
Officer and a Gentleman.
All right.
And yours?
Primal Fear. You ever see that? It's really good. Ed Norton.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right.
But he was gorgeous in Officer and a Gentleman.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
I mean, it's really Pretty Woman, but I wanted to sound cooler.
Oh, you know what? Pretty Woman, too.
All right, we got to go.
Behind the Table is executive produced by Brian Teta. Supervising producers are Nathan Getty and Summer Shade. Associate producers are Emily Darcy and Katerina Alexopoulos, and our editor is Brian Davis. Our digital coordinator is Molly Kaiser, and director of publicity is Laurie Hogan. From ABC Audio, Trevor Hastings serves as senior producer, with director of podcast programming Josh Cohan and executive producer Laura Mayer.